So you're a dentist, eh? You're in the right place. This is the Canadian Dentist Podcast with Dr. Carlo Biasucci, where you'll get a truly Canadian approach to building a low-stress, highly profitable practice and live life on your terms. Learn more at theelitepractice.com.
Okay, training begins on the first day of work and it never ends. So according to a 2012 Allied Workforce Mobility Study, within 1 year, employers lose a quarter of new hires and another 1/3 do not meet productivity targets. This is a reason they determined as to why. Because of non-existent, underfunded, or non-intentional onboarding and training processes. If you hire someone and you do not set them up for success, they are not going to be successful, period, right? So we select and we hire people the best we can find, and then we underinvest in the required development that leads to the desired behaviors on their job. Employers just hope that the employee will exhibit the desired behaviors once they're on their job. As hope your business strategy, seriously. Okay? So training creates employee engagement and commitment because of increased confidence and competence. If people are confident and competent in what they are doing, by the way, competence, like the ability to do the job, if they've been trained well, will increase their confidence, and that will increase their performance. So training can powerfully reinforce culture and drive your desired behaviors, right? Which determines your results. It brings organizational values to life. It increases employee productivity and efficiency. Most see training as a downtime. People bitch and whine about, oh, I don't want to put away an afternoon for training. We're going to look at what we're going to lose. No, your thought process needs to be, I'm going to invest 3 hours for the next 30 days of increased productivity and insulating against turnover. It's worth the 3 hours, trust me, okay? If you put two businesses of any kind side by side and one invests more in training than the other, I guarantee you the one who trains more produces more, period. So, you have a monthly all-team training. I hope you're doing this. If you don't, you need to. What are you going to tackle? The top 3 things you want to address, train, and level up. Okay, just pick whatever they are. The top 3 burning issues that we need to train, level up, or just generally grow in our practice. Monthly, because if you go longer than that, people will forget. Okay, there is a forgetting curve. The name of the person who put this together escapes me at the moment, but it literally shows that by the end of 30 days, whatever you told a person, you're lucky if they remember 10% of it by the end of 30 days. So you have to keep this ball in the air every 30 days. You want to solicit employee feedback before the meeting, but don't deter feedback during your meeting either. So if people want to ask questions, interact, you want an interactive discussion, because if your team is engaged in a meeting, then they have buy-in. And then if you have out-of-line comments, you know, you're training something and a person says like, I don't think we can do that here, I don't think that'll work. My line has always been, why don't we just give this a serious try for 90 days and then reassess, okay? So if you're having issues with your training, if it turns into a bitch fest, let's just give this a try for 90 days and then we'll reassess. If it's not working, we'll change it. Okay, so design your onboarding process. You hire someone, how do we onboard them? Okay, you can just copy mine. Here's the idea, okay? We created an office-specific training library. Now, this is extravagant. It's pretty. It's done on a learning management site style operation. And you can see there's an introduction. There's our culture, training for all team members, administrative, hygiene, assistants, treatment coordinator, accounts, and so on, right down to associate doctors, okay? It's comprehensive. Here's what it looks like when you click on each section. So here's training for all team members. And we just get into all of the pieces. So this is if you have a new team member, here's the introduction to dentistry. And it just keeps going, right? What the new patient experience should look like. How do we see a new patient versus an emergency patient? And, it goes on and on and on. These are training videos, downloadable documents. It's just this huge, like Wikipedia for your practice, okay? And this is what we built. I want you to build this for your practice over time. It'll take years to do it, but it'll be so worth doing it, because when someone comes on to your team, they can get 80% of the way there just from the platform that you build. and then your key people can finish the training. Like literally, within 2 or 3 days, they know 80% of their job, and then it's just fine tuning, okay? Now, how long does this take to make? A long time. Do you need to do it all at once? No. Pick the top 3 areas that frustrate you the most about training people and start there. Do you need to make it pretty? No. You can just put it in a folder that's accessible from the computers in your office, like you put it on your server, and someone can just go there, open the video file, and watch it. Okay? Here is everything that is in my practice onboarding training site, okay? You can't read this, obviously. There's probably like 50, 60 items here. I'm going to give you a copy of this with the bonuses. This is the first unannounced bonus. I'm going to give this to you, okay, so you can see it. And I'll show you how to get that at the end. So you can see every topic that we covered if you want to create this. By the way, do you do it? No. You get your team to do it, okay? You incentivize your team to create these videos. Okay, you have an hour between patients? Beautiful. It's an hour opening. Create a video about this, okay? So simple. So where do you train your team? This is key. What does your training space look like? If this is where you stick people, like in the broom closet to go and train, not going to work. I mean, this does not say we care about employees. This says like, get out of the way, we're busy. Here's why I train my team. I pulled them out of the office. We rented a space. Now we were, 30, 40 people at this point. We rented a space in the hotel across the road, and we would have real training sessions, okay? I looked after my people. I treated them really well, like literally like they were going to a seminar with me for 3 hours. And I trained them like this. And you know what? They got a ton out of it. And I got a ton out of it because I tripled the practice in 3 years, okay? So you have to continually reinforce the culture at every meeting, at every morning huddle, in video, in any format that you can. But, every meeting we talked about culture, every morning huddle we talked about culture, and weekly I sent a video to the team from me talking about culture, just to keep this in the forefront of their mind. So we're talking about our history, our traditions, our brand, our reputation in the community, our generosity, our core values, our why chart. Just keep going at this stuff, okay? What message does it send when you have a real intentional onboarding and orientation process versus, hey, you're hired, that's great, here's your seat, go work, okay? Because by the way, most real businesses are spending the time. Ritz-Carlton spends hundreds of hours with a brand new employee, training them. That's why their experience is what it is, okay? Cheesecake Factory, same thing. Other high-end brands that are making the most profit in their industry, same thing, okay? So share your heritage, your traditions, what you stand for through stories if you can. Tell emotional stories. I always used to tell these kind of stories about the community things that we did. If we did this every year. We sponsored one of the police officers in our area dressed as Santa Claus and would go to the hospital and give stuffed animals to the kids who were in the hospital over Christmas, okay? It's a cool thing to do, but I always told the story that he relayed back to me so that my team could really get it on an emotional level, how impactful it was that our business was successful, so we can keep doing that, okay? Communicate your identity and brand, communicate the traits and behaviors that define internal and external service strategies, but create a sense of pride in working for your organization is the bottom line. People need to be proud to work for you. And this is why I always wanted new hires to start at the next meeting. So your first day is a meeting. You're going to attend a team meeting. Why? Because I wanted to set the standard about who we are, what we stand for, and what our culture is like, okay? Disney said this, do what you do so well so others feel compelled to tell others about you, okay? No joke. So I know you're busy, I know you're tired, and you probably don't have time for all this stuff is what you're thinking. So you showed up at work thinking about everything but the patients in your schedule and service excellence. But the patient can't see that. The patient is our guest and will happily return and refer if we make every experience with them a positive one, and you have the opportunity to be part of this mission that we have, which is to change the face of dentistry. So make this an intentional part of your practice. The leader has to spend the time with the people who train other people, like your team leads, okay? If you don't have team leads, well, we have a lot of work to do with your leadership. The leader, the business owner, teaches those who are teaching others in the practice. They have to know the processes down cold, okay? They have to know the culture and believe it, okay? Then your new hires need to be told that this is how we do things. Because if you've ever had this experience where you train something and then, a few months later, it's like people are just doing whatever. There's no shortcuts. And you have to make sure that your new people know that when you're trained, this is the only way it gets done, okay? I don't care if someone else comes along and says, let me show you a shortcut. No, the way you were taught is the way you do it, unless it comes through this channel, which is our training and onboarding channel. So keep developing and nurturing your team of highly engaged people, and daily communication can really reinforce that culture, okay? So we need to continually reinforce the culture at every meeting, at every morning huddle. And what I mean by daily reinforcement is morning huddles, and then at the end of the morning huddle, you can email a summary to everybody who wasn't there. So if you have people who start later, or people who are not in, or people who are on maternity leave, keep them in the loop, right? Someone goes on mat leave and you forget about them. Well, you really want them to come back or not? And then I like video because I can increase the frequency of how often I talk to them. So be as intentional with employee communication as you are about your customer communication, right? So you carefully craft the messages you say, you write, and you mail to your patients, but are you deliberate like that with your staff? Or do you just send a casual, unproofread communication to your key customers, your key patients, right? You never do that, right? How many of you would send a casual, unproofread email to your employees, right? Here's an example of an email with spelling errors, grammar errors, like, it just doesn't, it's just rude. Like, hey, it's come to my attention that expense reports are not being filled out properly. Incomplete reports will not be paid. That's just rude. First of all, there's lots of spelling errors. It's ugly. Like, take the time, polish your communication. It says a lot about you and how you feel about your team and your culture in total when you communicate to your team properly, okay? One-worders here and there, just don't do it, okay? Spend the time. So on a scale of 1 to 100, how much intentionality do you put in your customer communication versus how much do you put into your employee communication? Why? Okay? I'm talking fast here, but this is why I'm going to give you a copy of my slides and a copy of the presentation. So stick around and I will show you how to get that. So it's just as damaging to be casual in your employee communication as it is in your customer communication, because basically it just tells your employees that you don't care, okay? So all communication must be intentional. If you want to point out a problem, present a solution. Often the problem that you are having in your business is a result of inadequate training. Okay, very, very few issues are a matter of the person isn't capable for the role. Most of it's just they're not trained and you don't have time to train them and you don't have a process to do it right. And never micromanage people, which is a whole other conversation. You have to hire great people with great systems and let them run, and they will. If you don't have great systems, you're screwed. If you don't have great people, it's harder, but not having systems is worse, okay? I guarantee you that. So you got to listen to understand, not to evaluate. You have to exercise emotional control when you're talking to people. I'm talking about now specifically the team development interview, which I'm going to show you very quickly, is how we evaluate and coach team members. We need to focus. We need to build relationships and build trust by listening. Everyone has good ideas. If the cleaning staff had an idea, I would listen to it, okay? If the front line sees something that I don't see, I would be listening because they get the immediate customer reaction. I don't. I'm just hearing about it after the fact, okay? So let's talk about the team development interview process. We need a consistent process that is intended to improve the performance of your team, not create a punitive culture. I see a standard performance review is looking at the past 90 days and saying, did you do well or not? A team development interview is a forward-looking discussion, okay? So what you say and how you say it affects more than those who hear it. Your communication is a direct reflection of your culture. You got to treat all employees with dignity, respect, consistent, and fairness. How do we do this process? This is an example of just one. You can take this and you can modify it for other roles in your practice, okay? So for a lead dental assistant, first of all, I want them to have this ready when they come to the discussion. Who's doing this? Not the doctor. Okay, there's a process for this. So we need to know what the doctor's production goal is. But then we're going to start with what went right this week. Did the doctor meet goal? What actions are you taking to increase their production? How can we get the average production to increase in the next 30 days? What are the average wait times for your patients? What ideas do you have to get wait times down? What is the biggest thing you need training on at this time? What suggestions do you have to improve systems or patient experience? See, this is getting someone to think ahead and look for ways to improve themselves, okay? Versus what did you do well or not well, and like checking boxes and giving them a score. Like I want people to think. I want them to think about how to make the business better, okay? So that's the key. Next is empowering your team, okay? Your team needs to be able to think and make decisions without having to go through someone else. So an empowered team will automatically just be able to think of what's in the best interest of the patient's practice and team and then make a decision, okay? Do I write off this $50 that the patient is upset about? Well, if that's in the best interest of the patient's practice team, then yes, right? So that you give them a framework that's easy for them to make decisions around. This is what I use. And I've been teaching this for a long time. It works extremely well in every circumstance, okay? If you take the time to explain it, give examples, and get your team up to the level where they feel comfortable doing this, right? By communicating, training, all the things we've been talking about. Then you have to care for your team. So it's hard for people to leave an organization where your peers and leaders generally care about you. So caring for your people makes them feel emotionally connected. Right? This is how we started our conversation, right? Emotionally connected, part of the team in your family, genuinely cared for. And the number one reason why patients leave a dentist is because they perceive that the dentist is indifferent about whether they go there or not. It's the same thing with your team, okay? People leave because they don't think you care. Peter Drucker said that culture eats strategy for breakfast every time. Absolutely true. If your culture stinks, your business stinks. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't have the culture to back it up, you're done. Okay? So we need to focus on culture. And I mentioned morning huddle, handwritten appreciation notes. How about that? If you don't take the time to appreciate your people, and all you do is because you're busy with patients all day, you catch them doing things wrong, you are done. Your culture is toast. People will never, ever do more than they need to, absolutely need to get a paycheck for you. Okay, you have to catch people doing things right and let them know. If you don't have the time during the day, then a handwritten note stuck in everyone's locker, the next morning will do the job. But you got to take the time to catch people doing things right, okay? Be a leader who inspires team members to grow versus a boss, okay? 5, 15, 80 very, very quickly is just a breakdown of the Pareto principle, right? You have the 80-20 principle. So you have your top 5, which is like your 1 or 2 real key people in the office. Then you have your next 15, which rounds out your top 20. And then you have the 80%, which is the rest of the team. You need to spend most of your time not with the 80%, but with the top 5. Grow those people. You'll get more out of the best people getting better than you will out of the 80%. It's just how it is, okay? Better people get better faster than your mediocre people. The best they might do is be a little less mediocre, okay? You need to go after the top people. Those are the winners. And then for the 80%, if you need to move that group, sway that group, grow them, go after the influencers. There's always an influencer that everyone looks to in your team. Those are the people to push first, okay? Go get their votes. Get them on side. They will help you sway the rest of the group, okay? It's a really quick strategy. By the way, I'm burning through this. I realize that. This is like a whole day workshop, okay? We spend a lot of time on this stuff. But I'm really trying to give you a lot of value in a short time here. So you got to give people clarity. So again, I mentioned what are your values, mission, expectations, clear organizational chart. I'll show you an example. Clear system for everything. I'll show you an example. But they need to know what is expected of them. Back to that initial 12 questions, that Gallup hierarchy of success, okay? The self-managing practice is absolutely possible if you get this right and you train people well. And then hold them accountable to that team development interview process, not through a punitive process, okay? You got to be a purpose-driven practice, have a little fun, and you will be amazed at how much dentistry can be just the coolest profession ever.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Canadian Dentist Podcast. If you want to know how Dr. Biasucci tripled his practice in 3 years and cut his work week in half, request your free information kit at theelitepractice.com.